Well, we sure did carry a whole bunch of gear from Canada to Mexico, and by we, I mean me, so let's go ahead and talk about it. As one of my favorite pieces of gear, it makes sense to start off this gear list with the Hyperlight Mountain Gear Ultimate 2. While it might look suspiciously similar to the Denver International Airport or an alien spaceship, its massive floor space and ability to stand up to the elements make it a keeper. I did have to send it into HMG to have the zipper repaired mid-trip, but I'm pretty sure that's a failing of my specific tent rather than the model overall. There's surely much more I could say about this tent, but I'll spare you guys for today and make a video on this tent in the upcoming weeks. To keep my wonderful tent from flying away, I use 8 of these lightweight stakes that I found at REI, and since I lost the ditty bag, I just use a rubber band to keep them all together in my backpack. For a ground sheet, I use a super ultra light painter's drop cloth that I found at the hardware store. Basically just cut it into 2 rectangles, that way there's one for each side of the tent. At this point, there's a lot of holes in it, but it doesn't really matter too much since I used a closed cell foam sleeping pad. For my pack, I used my trusty Hyperlight Mountain Gear Southwest 2400. With 4,000 miles, it's beginning to show a little bit of wear and tear, especially along the seams of the shoulder straps and on the zippers on the hip belt pocket. But it's still a favorite and I'll keep using it until it dies for real. I tried out a quilt for the first time this year with Thermarest's Vesper 20 degree quilt. Overall, I was really happy with it and how packable and warm it was, and Skittles seemed to approve too. My biggest gripe was just that it got a little bit drafty in the colder months when I had to share it with the dog. As far as sleeping pads go, I stuck with closed cell foam pads. I started out with the Thermarest Z-Lite Sole, and because it had a lot of miles, as soon as it got cold, I switched that out for the Nemo Switchback. Unfortunately, it did seem like the Nemo Switchback got a little bit compressed a lot quicker than the Z-Lite did, but overall, much less stress for me than dealing with an inflatable pad. Next, let's go ahead and talk about my water system. I carried 3 1-liter Smart Water bottles or similar brand, 1 with dirty water, 1 with dog water, and 1 with clean filtered water. The clean filtered water bottle had a sport cap on it, that way I could use it to backwash my filter. I also carried 2 collapsible platypus bladder things just to increase our water capacity, and since each is about 2 to 2.5 liters, that means that we had a total capacity of about 8 liters on this trip. They did start to look a little sad in New Mexico, so I used some super glue to kind of fix where they were leaking around the edges, which just helped us make it through to the end. For our filtration system, I used the Sawyer Squeeze, and I kept it in a plastic Ziploc baggie to make sure that I wouldn't lose the O-ring and keep it from leaking in my bag at night. And finally, I brought the bottom of a Sawyer bag to use for scooping up dirty water. Next, let's go ahead and talk about food in the kitchen. I started off using a Talenti jar to cold soak my food all through Montana and Wyoming. In Steamboat, I got my MSR Pocket Rocket 2 mailed back to me. I combined that with a Bic lighter I found on the trail and a Toaks Titanium 750 milliliter cookpot. And let's not forget about the oh-so-important spork. I picked up this titanium one at Walmart last year after I lost my last one on the San Luis Loop. On the food storage front, I primarily used the Ursack XL. It was really nice to be able to just throw all of our food in there and go tie it to a tree without worrying about it, especially when we were in grizzly country. Due to the fact that I also had to carry all the dog's food, I decided to also bring along a Z-Packs Bear Bag kit. Whenever I couldn't get everything to fit in the Ursack, I would just throw it into the Z-Packs bag and do a quick 2-tree bear hang. It was really nice because since it's made out of Dyneema, it didn't add too much extra weight to my pack. A secondary purpose was whenever I couldn't get everything to fit into my backpack, I would end up throwing it into the Z-Packs bag and carry it along like a purse. And even though I did bring along an odor-proof sack, I honestly didn't use it that much just because it was hard to get everything to fit in there and actually get it to close. Now let's move on to clothing. In my opinion, a good outfit starts with a good hat. Case in point, my sloth hat. From there, I've built my sloth legacy with this wonderful sloth Hawaiian shirt. In case you're wondering, that is indeed a sloth riding a T-Rex that's shooting lasers from its eyes in outer space. And the last critical piece of this sloth-tastic ensemble would be my Galaxy running shorts. Beneath it all, I just wore a generic sports bra from Target and some hiking undies. I'm not really sure you can call yourself a hiker if you don't have socks, and I had plenty of those on this trip. While my sock strategy changed throughout the trip, I usually had a pair of crew socks, sometimes some ankle socks, and usually some compression socks. Almost all of them were from Darn Tough. Anyone who's ever been on a hike knows that if the feet aren't happy, no one's happy. So let's go ahead and talk about shoes. On this trip, I went through 5 different pairs. I started with the Ultra Timps Model 2.0, moved on to Ultra Lone Peaks Model 3.5, tried out the Ultra Lone Peaks Model 5.0, regretted my decision to wear the Ultra Timps Model 3.0, and finished off with another pair of the Ultra Lone Peaks 5.0. For base layers, I brought a pair of leggings that my friend gave me, a fleece that I found at the thrift store a couple years ago, a buff repping my home state on it, the Montbell Anorak Puffy, fuzzy Burton gloves, and REI Gore-Tex rain mitts, which is the perfect lead-in to rain gear. I was gifted this mystery outdoor research jacket on the Great Divide Trail by Trail Angel a few years ago, which made it all the more heartbreaking when it started to wet out around Steamboat. Thus, it got retired in Salida, and I went to the gear shop to get a new jacket instead. There are only about 4 choices, so I went with the Marmot Precip, which fortunately seemed to work out pretty well, other than the pocket getting eaten by the dogs at the end of the trip. Being a firm believer in rain pants, I brought along a pair of the REI Zero Dry Gore-Tex pants. Well, I wouldn't have been able to make all those videos without electronics, so let's talk about that next. Everything you've been watching has been filmed on my iPhone 12 Pro. I also brought along 2 ND filters that I honestly didn't use very much. In comparison, this miniature iPhone tripod was probably my favorite piece of gear. I kept it clipped to the shoulder strap for easy access. On my other shoulder strap, I kept my Garmin InReach Mini available for emergencies. And I brought along this excessively large power bank from Anker. At 20,100 milliamp hours, I could keep everything charged for up to 8 days, assuming I remembered to charge it in town. Because I'm not very good at charging things in town, I also brought along this eScene solar panel that I kept strapped to my pack. However, you might remember that it died a horrible death in New Mexico. Barbed wire fence 1, solar panel 0. It's pretty hard to charge your stuff without cords, so I had several of those, and a small wall charger. To keep my iPhone happy, I backed up all the videos on this SanDisk Extreme SSD, and paired it with this fancy dongle, that way I could actually plug it into my phone. Another Walmart find, this little headlamp did a good enough job considering we didn't do much night hiking. Notice that I replaced the headband with a piece of paracord because, every gram counts, right? A later gear addition, I picked up this little backpacking lamp in Dillon in order to stave off the more than 12 hours of night. Why don't we go ahead and tackle hygiene next? To get the critical business done, I brought along the Deuce of Spades No. 2 and paired that with bathroom wet wipes, which I was sure to pack out when done. Now ladies, if you don't have a bandana to use as a pee rag, do yourself a favor and go get one now. Other pertinent items include sunscreen, sun corrector gel, chapstick, a travel toothbrush, travel toothpaste, and flossers, and Body Glide. I also carried an all-purpose pack towel / snot rag, which I had to replace halfway through the trip. Compared to most hikers, I carried an extremely large and heavy first aid kit, so let's go with a lightning round on that. Gauze pads, ice pack, hand warmers, tenacious tape, medical tape, gauze wrap, vet wrap, dog dewormer, mini scissors, super glue, zipper lube, a small knife, human nail clippers, Stypic powder, permanent marker, lidocaine wound gel, tramadol, Rimadyl, and metronidazole for the dogs, ibuprofen, alcohol wipes, tweezers, latex gloves, and a few other random things that I keep in my trail running first aid kit. Woo, that was a lot. Let's go ahead and go through dog gear next. For starters, I had Prima's Groundbird Gear trekking roll top pack mailed to us in Butte. Ironically, she never carried it all during the trip. I carried it the whole way and basically just used it as extra storage since my own pack is probably a little bit too small. I also brought her along some homemade leashes made out of a climbing carabiner and some paracord, one for each dog. We started off the trip with 2 Dyneema dog bowls for food and water, but unfortunately one got blown away all the way to Nebraska while we were in Wyoming, so we replaced it with a Roughwear bowl and Steamboat. The dog sleep system primarily consisted of a Costco Black Diamond throw quilt, the Eva MLD Goodnight 1/8 inch pad, and a 4-panel Z-light that we found in Montana. I also carried way too many dog booties on the trail. Like seriously, why did I just throw some of those worn out ones away? On top of which, I also carried some foot care products like Musher Secret and Tough Foot. Grooming needs don't go away just because you're hiking, so I also carried dog nail clippers and various dog-specific grooming tools. And while I did bury their poop most of the time on the trail, I carried some dog poop bags for in town. Both Preem and Skittles also had their own clothing system for Colorado and northern New Mexico. Each dog had their own Herta body warmer and their own Herta rain blocker. And in case you have yet to exclaim, "Wow, these dogs are spoiled," I also carried a dog toy for them the whole entire trip. And finally, onto all the miscellaneous items that I probably should have just left at home. This umbrella was originally meant for the dogs, but ended up being a great way to keep the rain out of my tent while I was waiting for the zipper to get fixed. Because food is life and money equals food, I used this baggie for a wallet. And I picked up this notebook at the dollar store in Cuba so that I could maybe feel productive with my life. Prescription sunglasses were a must since I'm basically blind, and doubled as a great backup pair of glasses. I had a mask for in town, trekking poles to fight off the bears and the cows, a trash bag pack liner, a mug to thaw my frozen soul, and the most important item in this whole operation, anywhere between 1 to 3 books in my backpack at a given time. So there you have it. That's probably everything I carried for the 3 of us on the CDT, but to be honest, I probably forgot something. Fortunately, I've been making a gear list on my website, so if you really want to know everything I carried, you can check out that link in the description box below. Now this is a part where I'm supposed to tell you that just because this gear worked for me, doesn't mean it works for everyone. Gear is a personal choice based off of what trail you're hiking and your own preferences. So thank you guys for watching. Be sure to let me know if you have any questions down in the comments, and stay tuned for more in-depth videos and gear reviews in the upcoming weeks.